So we're going to operate the front logo using this adapter here. You can see that it is attached with a Home Depot paint stick that is glued in the front on the sides. This will be covered with a plastic molding. There's two wires, red and black. We're going to attach that to the back of the headlight. Make sure you get the right one. This is the one that is exposed right here, yellow and white, which correlates to the front of the car. Using a voltage pack here, you can see that I can test to see what the effect is. So using the voltage, we can see that the light lights up. Make sure it's the proper color that you want, and all we have to do is connect it to that part. Now you'll notice that there is a... Alright, step 2 is to route the wire through. I'm going to use heatsink here so that when I connect it to the tube, this part doesn't get dissolved. And then I'm going to use heat shrink here and here. And I'm going to solder this. Now I routed the wire through and I cut it here. So I routed the wire from using this tip here, which I'm going to cut the head off, and I connect it to the yellow piece. And then I'm just going to tape it to the thick tubes with rubber tape. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and solder, but I'm going to strip a little bit of the wire because I want to make sure it's a clean connection. So you'll know the wire is a good connection if it's really shiny. If it's rusted, it's not going to have a good sticking. Now when you cut the wire, make sure you cut it as short as you can. And then you can trim the excess ends like that. So you have basically a lot of wire and a very short piece. Make sure you twist the wire. And I'm going to go ahead and tin this, even though it's a small piece. That will help sure it sticks. This connector is white on one side, black on the other. So on the white side, I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption that it's red. Okay. Now the trick when soldering is to make sure you come in and out really fast. In other words, you don't have to hold it for a long time. You just have to get the bond. Needle nose plier to hold it in place. That will just allow you to get closer to the surface. Okay. And as long as we got a grip, we're good. Now if you feel like it, if you're really OCD, you can put it. Okay. So now you can see that I have soldered the joints. I have my red heat shrink in place, and I have my outer heat shrink in place. So I'm going to go ahead and slip this red over the joint and then heat shrink it tight, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. Alright, so the heat shrink is over the joint. I'm going to go ahead and light up the torch. Now you want to make sure you don't do this too close to the car. So let's take the tape out and let's basically hold it in the air if we can so that it's away from the car. So just a little bit. So then we got it. Okay, so now my joints are done. So with inside this little heat shrink, I have another heat shrink that holds the red wire. I've also taken the time to heat shrink the tubing here, just because it'll connect and it'll just kind of just flow through the air. So I want to make sure I put some insulation. So the next step is to cut the head off of this tip and then connect it to the head. And basically now I'm ready to connect it to the yellow and white connector. Alright, so just as a safety precaution, I'm going to use a voltmeter to measure the voltage that is coming through here. Make sure when you do this you wear rubber shoes because you don't want to basically shock yourself. Okay, so we're almost done with our project here. You can see I used heat shrink tubing. I just used the long tube of it to insulate it. I just fed it through. I put some WD-40 in the middle and connected it. Basically, so all we're left now is basically connecting the wire. So I use the red clips here. So what this is basically you just pass the wire through and then clip it and then snap it on. So that connects. I made sure I tested the voltage. Make sure you tested. I blew a fuse last time actually, so it's fortunately the fuse box is right there. So I crimped the thing. You can basically see that. Make sure it's tight. That means it's crimped together. And then all you gotta do is take the end here and just fold it on top of the other end, and it just sticks together like that. If you need help, I recommend you use a needle nose plier. And then I just wrap rubber tape around it. Alright, so we tested one more time. You can see that I attached the connectors. Now I'm just going to rubber tape it for extra security. I had to go and cut a little bit of this heat shrink. And I'm going to take that and make sure I can plug it in to the light. Make sure it works still. And then I'm going to rubber tape it. So as you can see here, the logo is basically now secure. The heat shrink tubing follows along the path with being just taped a little bit here and there, and then it goes to the connector, which I have double insulated, and you can see right there that's where the connector is to the light. So everything is pretty much hopefully pretty clean, and the heat shrink provides extra insulation, especially because the engine could get hot. So that's it in a nutshell.